My name is Bart Gamber. I'm Director of Programs at MK Community Foundation. I'm in charge of our Vital Signs program, and that means putting out our report every year. Vital Signs was an initiative that started in Canada about a dozen years ago. And the idea was that it would be a way to draw together a lot of the research on a local area and present it in an easily accessible format so that people could be better informed about what's going on in their community. This year's report illustrated something that we've been noticing for quite some time now. That while Milton Keynes is a thriving local economy and a reputation for being an affluent city, that affluence is not penetrating through to everybody in our society, and that in Milton Keynes there are a large number of people who are really struggling right now. So Vital Signs is an opportunity for us to illuminate that issue and give people a little bit more detail and information about what's really going on in terms of hardship and poverty in their community.
Thank you very much. Vital Signs, some of you are familiar faces, so you'll be familiar with Vital Signs, but for those of you to whom this is new, it was an initiative that started in Canada about a dozen years ago. Milton Keynes Community Foundation hosted the UK launch of Vital Signs with our partners at the Open University in 2013. Vital Signs works in that we release a full report every 3 years, covering a range of different themes. And then in the intermediate years, we have an update report, which is much shorter and just covers things that have been updated since the full report. So 2016 is our first full report since 2013 when we launched. So it's been quite a lot of effort for us this year to get all the research together. And I should point out that the research that's presented in Vital Signs is not our research. We seek this research out. It's all over the place. And the point of Vital Signs is to try to gather it together, to bring it into one place and present it in a way that's really digestible, that's accessible and easy to understand. The point being that we'd like to inform discussion, we'd like to inform debate in Milton Keynes so that people are more aware of what's going on in the community and are able to talk to each other about ways to address challenges that we face, as well as to celebrate the things that we do well, the assets that we have in Milton Keynes. There's an important part of Vital Signs that we always engage in every year, and that's a community consultation, because it's not just gathering the dry facts, it's talking to people in Milton Keynes to gather their perspectives on their lives and their communities. We did that again this year in partnership with the Open University. We had a series of about a dozen focus groups involving a wide range of people discussing all of the themes in this year's report. We also conducted an online survey in which about 600 local people participated, again, asking many questions about each of the themes in this report. And the report is presented in two different formats. The one that you'll be getting today is our summary report. It's designed like a magazine, so it's nice and colorful and bright. We also have a full version of the report, which you can download from our website later this week. And that's a much longer document with a lot more facts. It also has a lot more of the content from our focus groups. It was so hard to decide what gets into the summary report, and it's you leave behind so much that you wish you could have fit in because there's so much good stuff. But in the long, full version of the report, which you can get from our website, there's lots more of that focus group quotes, people sharing their own experiences, a lot of which I found really powerful. So, let's dive in. Here we go, A Tale of Two Cities. This is a theme that we used last year, and we decided to use it again because it still feels very appropriate given the findings. Milton Keynes is thriving in many ways, but there are still too many families living in severe financial hardship in our city. There are too many people working full-time jobs, only to discover that their wages don't cover their family's basic needs. So we start this morning with a look at our local economy. It's no secret that Milton Keynes is a success story. We have a thriving private sector in Milton Keynes. We've had any number of politicians from national government coming here for photo opportunities and talking about how we're a thriving, forward-looking, progressive local economy. And just to look at it in a bit more detail, you can see that we're the third most successful city in the country for the creation of new business startups. So we have an environment in which new businesses can thrive. The proportion of local companies in the information and technology sectors. Every economy is divided up into different sectors. You've got professional and business and admin support. But the makeup of Milton Keynes' local economy is unusual. This is part of why I think we're seen as a forward-looking progressive economy, is because of that emphasis on information and technology. We're a very productive economy, 18% greater than the national average. and our workers, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. It was 18% for the workers, more productive, 25% for our economy as a whole. However, when we surveyed local people, we found that 57% report that they've recently had to cut their household spending. So is our thriving local economy working for everyone? This is kind of an interesting point. We have the 10th highest average income in the country. However, if you look at the median income, right in the middle, it's in line with the national median. So why have we got an average income that's 10th highest in the nation and a median income which is the same as the national median? Because we have an unusual concentration of wealth at the top end. It's a disparity that is unusual in its scale. And that concentration of wealth at one end is pulling the average up while the median stays in line with the national median. Let's focus in on work. The estimated total workforce of Milton Keynes as of this year, 143,750. Now the proportion of 16 to 64-year-olds, and that's our working age population in employment, is 77%. And the proportion of the total workforce that was in employment in 2015, and this includes everyone in the age group, is 79%. This is a good stat for us. Local workers in part-time jobs, because it's lower than the national average for that, it's good in the sense that the greater the proportion of people working full-time, the more they're contributing to the local economy. So a lower proportion of part-time workers is seen as something of benefit to us. Right, the portion of those on job seekers' allowance have been claiming for 12 months or longer, substantially lower than the national average. And although the unemployment rate has crept up slightly, it has been lower than that in recent years, we're still well below the national average for unemployment. This statistic is one that we highlighted last year. Youth unemployment was 26% last year, and just to be clear, that does not include young people who are in education and otherwise would not be able to work. So the fact that it's dropped 10% in a year is great news. It's now 16%, although if you look back over several years, it's quite a volatile indicator, so it does seem to bounce up and down quite a bit. Now, the Living Wage Foundation calculates what the living wage is set at with an algorithm. It's intended to determine the minimum basic income needed just to maintain a basic standard of living. But what's the difference between the living wage and the minimum wage? If you're looking at a full-time job, it works out to about £2,184 a year, assuming the person is over 24.
So my name is Tom Bullman. I'm the community organizer for Citizens MK. That's an alliance of community organizations, including churches and schools and other faith groups and voluntary organizations. We've been operating for 6 years. We've got various campaigns on, and the biggest and the longest active campaign is Living Wage campaign, which is actually part of a national campaign to get more employers to pay all their employees at least a minimum standard of pay that's required for a decent life. It's calculated quite carefully each year for how much that is per hour. And our mission here is to get 50 MK employers to pay that level. We're doing quite well because we've got 32. And 50th birthday next year for MK, the vision is we've got to hit 50 by the end of next year, 2017. And we've got, during National Living Wage Week, we've got a big event to kick off that. And hopefully next November 2017, we celebrate the 50.
So we have a picture of a very productive workforce, high levels of employment, and a great business environment in Milton Keynes. So surely, Milton Keynes has very low levels of poverty, right? Sadly, it's not the case. This 1 in 5 statistic, the proportion of children in Milton Keynes living below the poverty line, 1 in 5, that statistic hasn't really changed since we started doing vital signs. It's remained pretty static at that level. And keep in mind that the poverty line is set very, very low. To give you an idea of where things are moving in terms of trends in Milton Keynes, The government divides the country up into output areas, and that's useful for the purpose of the census, which takes place every 10 years. And if you took all of the output areas across the country and put them in a row in terms of the most deprived to the least deprived, 21 of those areas in Milton Keynes fit within the most deprived fifth in the country, and that is going up. If you look at us on a local authority level, again, ranking from least deprived to most deprived, we've moved up 8 places, we've moved up 31 places in 8 years on that list. So there is a growing level of deprivation in Milton Keynes, even though we are seen as quite an affluent area. Now, the poverty line it's an algorithm. It's a formula. If you want to figure out what the poverty line is for a particular household, you need to know how many people live in the household, how old the children are, if there are children, etc. So we've just tried to give an example. If we had a single parent with 2 young children, the poverty line was set at £235 per week. So you can imagine earning more than £235 a week. You could still be in quite severe financial hardship, but you would not be classified as living in poverty and would not be part of that 1 in 5 statistic, which suggests that 1 in 5 is probably grossly underreporting the problem. And I mentioned the thing about ages before. As you'll be aware, the minimum wage is different depending on your age. So if this single parent with 2 young children was going to earn £235 a week, they'd need to be working 33 hours a week at minimum wage. 21 to 24, the minimum wage drops from $7.20 to $6.95. 18 to 20 drops again to £5.55. And God help you if you're a 17-year-old who's been chucked out of your house by your parents. You've got 2 small children, because the minimum wage for you is £4 an hour. And to even reach the poverty line, you would have to work 59 hours a week at that rate. This raises the question, what is the minimum wage for? If it's there to ensure a minimum basic standard of living, even at a basic subsistence level, then it appears that it isn't necessarily fit for purpose anymore. At the risk of sounding like a grumpy old man, I have enough gray whiskers to remember that there was a time when there was a kind of social compact, an understanding that if you're prepared to work hard, if you're going to work a full-time job, then in return you will earn enough to be able to provide for yourself and your family, even at a very basic level. But that's not the case anymore. A lot of households, you've got both parents working full-time jobs and still not able to make it to the end of the month with what they're bringing in. We have a new and growing demographic of the working poor.
I'm Ben Thomas. I'm the director of the Citizens Advice Service in Milton Keynes. The foundation very kindly gave us a grant at the beginning of this year for £25,000 under the Vital Signs project, and the funding has allowed us to recruit a home visiting caseworker who visits vulnerable, disadvantaged people at home, providing advice, support, advocacy across a range of issues, but primarily most of the people that we've been able to help so far under this project have been people with significant financial difficulties. Many of them also have quite complex family problems as well. Typically, any of the issues that we've been able to deal with the use of this funding have been people being evicted, people that have bailiffs perhaps trying to come to their property because they owe people lots of money, haven't paid their council tax, haven't paid their rent, and also people that have been perhaps through a traumatic relationship breakdown. We've seen a number of clients who have been in quite abusive relationships, and also people that have a number of dependent children who rely on them for financial support, and they're struggling to make ends meet every month. They might be working part-time or maybe reliant on welfare benefits to keep their household running.
Now we move on to a theme that we've added to Vital Signs this year for the first time by popular demand. We keep having focus groups over the years, and everybody wants to talk about transport in Milton Keynes. It doesn't matter what the theme of the focus group is, it comes up over and over and over again. So we are the first community foundation in the UK to add this as a theme to Vital Signs. And I have to say, it's very relevant to the issue of poverty that we've just been looking at. The statistic here, 200 miles of roadway cycling. This is designed to provide an infrastructure in Milton Keynes that makes it possible to get around without a car. And indeed, it's estimated that about 62% of local workers do commute by car in Milton Keynes. Here's a new initiative. It's received a lot of attention. I'm sure you've heard about it. Santander is sponsoring a bike hire scheme. It's pretty low cost. They've got 500 bikes at 50 different stations around Milton Keynes, and it's proven to be quite popular. Responding to public concerns about the safety of some of the redways in Milton Keynes, national funding has been secured for a pretty exciting initiative, Redway Super Routes. It's a series of, I think it's about 100 kilometers of the network of redways that are going to be upgraded, if you will. So they're crisscrossing the central Milton Keynes and a lot of the central estates in kind of a patch or hatch pattern across. They're going to be upgrading the lighting, they'll be resurfacing them and turning them into much more appealing and accessible walking and cycling routes around Milton Keynes. We said that transport was relevant to the issue of poverty. And if you look at the long version of this year's Vital Signs report, you'll find about 3 pages of reactions from our focus groups primarily about the local bus system. I've got a few quotes which I'll share with you. One person said, it may be fine for us in the town, but in the villages outside of the city, it's a very different story. The public transport system is really poor. Someone else said, it's often cheaper to pay a taxi than to use public transport if there's more than one of you, particularly if you've got multiple children going to school by bus, it costs a fortune. Another person said, to get from Tattenhoe to the OU by bus, you have to go via Newport Pagnell, and it takes an hour and a half. Plus, for a family of 4 to take that journey by city bus costs £13.80. And finally, someone else said, I don't use buses because they don't get me where I want to go. I rely on my car purely because when I start work in the morning, no buses run, and I probably have to get 3 buses each way to get to work and back again. There's no direct bus. And this makes me wonder if people who are struggling financially can't afford bus fare, or the routes are so slow and circuitous that it becomes totally impractical to use it as a means of getting to work, then what impact does that have on their ability to access the services that they need, or healthcare, or education and training, or employment? You know, I've been poring over these statistics for over 4 years now. I've interviewed focus grouped, surveyed thousands of local people. And the one thing that I cannot escape is the belief that poverty is not a trap, it's not a choice, it's a trap. And then when you get caught in that trap, it's very, very difficult to get out. And this is a great example of what that looks like. So let's look at strong communities. And this is a theme that looks at our engagement with our community, our involvement, our personal investment, our sense of place, and our sense of belonging. So this was mentioned by Tom earlier. We've got about 3/4 of local people who do try to get involved in local activities and have an interest in that. You can see that we are the 4th fastest growing district in the UK, so our population is increasing rapidly. Expected to grow by almost 1/5 over the next 10 years. If you look just at the rural areas, it's expected to grow by 7%. So that would suggest that within the city area, it will be a bit higher than 19%. So that's quite a substantial amount of growth in a relatively short period of time. We did also look at the votes cast in the last local council election. Just about 1/3 of the electorate turned up. Now, if we're going to increase our population by 1/5 in the next 10 years, we're going to definitely need some more houses. If you were to live in the city center or work in the city center, it will come as no surprise to you that there's been a large increase in homelessness in Milton Keynes. Safer MK reports that there were 27 confirmed rough sleepers in the city, another 31 reported but unconfirmed, and that's a 237% increase on 3 years ago when we had 8 confirmed rough sleepers. That was the last time we looked at this for vital signs. I know that our winter night shelter ran at full capacity last year, and they reported to us that they are seeing noticeably more women as well, sleeping rough. Number of families registered as homeless living in B&Bs. Recent reports indicate that this has been on the increase. And the number of households that were formally registered as homeless as of March of 2015 was 672. And households doesn't mean one person necessarily. Obviously, a household could be a couple and their children. So this is more than 672 people. Despite some volatility over the last several years, we have a very healthy housing market in Milton Keynes. Prices going up 52% in the last 10 years. The average house price, and remember when we saw that the average weekly wage for Milton Keynes, if you work that out to over a year, that's an average of about $30K a year. So the average house price is more than 9 times the average income. So unsurprisingly, when we surveyed local people, a large majority feel that local housing is just not affordable if you're looking to buy anymore. And as homeownership drifts out of reach for many households in Milton Keynes, it's important to note that people also feel that rental prices are no longer affordable. Now, diversity is our next theme. This was a bit of a struggle for us this year. In 2013, the last time we covered this theme, the census reports were fairly new. We had a treasure trove of data and information to report on it regarding ethnic diversity in Milton Keynes and religious diversity and so forth. But since 2013, there's been very, very little in terms of new data released specifically about Milton Keynes and diversity. Fortunately, Milton Keynes schools conduct a school census. And the most recent school census shows that more than a third of students in Milton Keynes are now of ethnic or cultural minority backgrounds. The largest of which is students of Black African origin. That's 1 out of every 10 students in Milton Keynes. And nearly a fifth of the local people we surveyed told us that they feel that not all people in Milton Keynes are treated equally. You might say, well, that means that the other 4 did, but if we're talking about minorities, it's important to take into account that the minority, if a minority of people reported that they think there's a problem, then we should probably pay attention to that. Now, this is an encouraging change. We are, as a community, are increasingly of the opinion that our diversity is a strength in Milton Keynes. It's becoming part of our identity, I think. Milton Keynes is getting a reputation for being a very diverse and rapidly growing city. And I think we're starting to take some pride in that. It's one of our assets and something that we should appreciate. And there's some concern that as our population rapidly grows, we're struggling to meet the complex needs of the many different communities that are settling here. 64% surveyed do not believe Milton Keynes is meeting the needs of our growing migrant communities. And exactly how many people are coming to Milton Keynes from abroad? The council reports that last year we had 2,150 people coming to Milton Keynes, but another 1,500 international migrants left Milton Keynes, which leaves you with a net immigration of 650. So, here's another vital signs theme in which Milton Keynes excels. There seems to be a pretty widespread appreciation for our natural environment in Milton Keynes. Local people surveyed agree that we have adequate parks, green spaces, and waterways, nearly unanimously. A lot of people don't realize, they think of Milton Keynes as the new city, but about 2/3 of Milton Keynes is rural. The National Recycling Guide estimates that nationally, about 60% of the rubbish that goes into landfills could have been recycled. So we're doing pretty well, and that only about 10% of what we put into the black bags could have been recycled. And this is great news. The new waste recovery park, which is apparently just opened, will also have biomass power generators. It's intended to reduce the amount of waste that goes into landfill down to 5%, which would be tremendous. Looking at air pollution in Milton Keynes, across the board, we see levels that are in line with safety recommendations. One of the better results that I saw when I was reviewing the data was a reduction in nitrogen dioxide pollution in central Milton Keynes, down 23% in that 12-year period. High rates of recycling in Milton Keynes, if people are telling the truth in the survey. This result from the survey was of great interest to us. There's all kinds of potential knock-on consequences when you feel that your immediate home environment is starting to look a bit run down. It's starting to look a little bit tatty around the edges. And this was nearly half of the people surveyed said that they felt that that was the case in their own neighborhoods. So, we wanted to focus on mental health this year for health and well-being. Anecdotally, we're hearing all kinds of things about this issue, and that there is something going on and that we need to be paying attention to it. But we really, really struggled to find recent, reliable data on mental health in Milton Keynes. There was a national survey for well-being, and that found that within Milton Keynes, our self-reported levels of anxiety are largely in line with what they're finding nationally. There was nothing particularly unusual about Milton Keynes in that respect. In addition to transport, local people told us that another factor affecting their ability to access health care in Milton Keynes is a lack of flexibility and resource at the times that they need. This has been a positive for Milton Keynes for some time now. Our rates of teen pregnancy in Milton Keynes have consistently been significantly lower than the national average for several years. And why might that be? Well, for more than a decade, we've had an excellent charity in Milton Keynes, Brook, now Brook East, which has been working hand in hand with local schools. They provide sexual and pregnancy information and advice for young people. And by all accounts, they do a tremendous job. We've been supporting them for a number of years. And it's felt that their success in local schools may be having an impact on this. And if that is the case, then it may also be having an impact on this: sexually transmitted infections in Milton Keynes. The red line represents the national average, and here in blue you see Milton Keynes. Not only lower than the national average, but trending downward. Also, this is with regard to mental health. 156 young people between the ages of 10 and 24 were admitted to hospital for self-harm in Milton Keynes, and that's an upsetting thing, although that is 8% fewer than would have been if it were the same as the national average. We can see, though, that this stat is kind of volatile. Milton Keynes does bounce back and forth on self-harm for some reason. So last year we were reporting that was an issue of concern for us. This year we're under the national average. Here's another really encouraging statistic. This is for under 18-year-olds, 56% fewer hospital admissions for alcohol-related conditions than the national average. This is kind of a worrying and mysterious finding. I can't really fathom why this would be. 26% more hospital admissions for asthma among young people. There was nothing in the air pollution data to suggest that that was a cause of this, so it's really quite mysterious. Let's move on to crime and safety. This is always an interesting theme for us because there's generally, or very commonly, a real disparity between people's perception of crime and safety and the reality. They don't always match up. 84% of local people surveyed agreed that Milton Keynes is a safe place to live, although 40% also told us that they don't feel safe walking alone at night. And this was borne out in our focus group discussions. I got a couple of quotes here from those as well to share with you. One said, going out at night, I have not met one lady who's happy about going out in the underpasses on the redways. Another said, I definitely do not feel safe walking in the evening, sometimes in the day, just under the underpasses, because it feels like every week you hear about someone being attacked. They're not well lit, they're quite murky, and there's often broken glass on them. I don't know, I just never feel safe walking underneath them. Now, while this appears to be stabilizing, we don't see any sign of rolling back the large increases in crime levels from a few years ago. And if you take it over that 5-year period, it is significantly higher now, 25% more crimes reported than 5 years before. And what that translated to last year was 71 crimes reported for every 1,000 residents in Milton Keynes. We've had a quick chat with Thames Valley Police about this one because it seemed quite alarming. It's a very large increase in 3 years. There is a sense that a lot of this is historical offenses, that because of all of the media attention on things with the U-Tree investigation and people coming forward about sexual abuse from many, many years before, that's encouraging people to report their own historical offenses, so that a proportion of this increase is really people talking about things that happened many years ago. But yeah, if you consider 545, that's one offense recorded every 15 and a half hours. It's not all bad news in crime and safety. There are some areas of improvement. For example, the drug offense rates. Is this due to less drug abuse, is the question that occurs to me. I know there have been changes to policing in this period of time, so what is the cause of this reduction?
Yeah, my name's Sue Burke and I'm Chief Exec of MKACT, Domestic Violence Intervention Services, and we provide support to those who experience domestic violence within Milton Keynes. So we provide refuge and outreach, and we also have a perpetrator programme as well. The Community Foundation is a real friend of MKACT. We sit in one of their buildings, so they support us there, but also they give us some money for First Steps to Freedom, which is a group work programme which supports women to help them understand what's happening to them and to look at the signs for domestic violence. It's a really good way of also linking to other agencies for support as well.
Arts and heritage. This is another area where we really struggled to find new data from 2013. There's just not a lot of money and resource being plowed into analyzing the impact of the arts in Milton Keynes at the moment. But fortunately, there's an organization called the Arts and Heritage Alliance, a tremendous group. They're an affiliation of organizations in the arts and heritage sector. And they conduct a survey where they do record a lot of data about what's going on. 3,182 events in arts and heritage over the year of 2014-15. That's nearly 9 per day. Our fantastic museum in Milton Keynes is undergoing something of a real renaissance of late. We've seen a significant increase in visitors, and with the exciting expansion that's coming, there's every reason to expect the museum's success will continue. Milton Keynes can be proud of our local collection of public art, which continues to grow. And this is an event that you might wonder why this is in arts and heritage, and our position is that it will become heritage. Surely it will be viewed as a significant moment in our city's development when we hosted the Rugby World Cup. This was to great success. This is despite our undeserved reputation as a city with no history. 82% of local people feel that there's great opportunities in Milton Keynes for those seeking to explore their local heritage. We have an undeserved reputation as a city with no history, but we do know better. Now, we tried to get attendance figures for the 2016 IF Festival, but they haven't been published yet. So we're looking at, although we did get a couple of updates from them. They tell us that the art installations for this year's festival that were in the city center, Center MK, the shopping center, were visited by 500,000 people. And that overall, the festival drew in over 300 artists and performers from around the world. As a contributor to our local economy, the festival in 2014 added almost $7.5 million to the local economy. So that shows that art can be a great investment.
My name's Claire Wood. I'm Head of Development and Communications at MK Gallery, and we're an educational charity based within Central Milton Keynes and working throughout the city and beyond. And we're about exploring the arts, using the arts to build stronger communities and enhance lives. We've worked very closely with MK Community Foundation, and we feel very privileged to be within the city and have such a strong partner with the Community Foundation. The foundation recently has been a great supporter for the gallery's expansion plans. We're building a new wing on the gallery and reconfiguring the existing spaces, and that's about doubling the venue so that we can enhance our opportunities that we can offer the community locally. MK Community Foundation have offered us or given us an extraordinary grant which has been absolutely instrumental, and that is particularly being used to enhance the access facilities within the building so that we can make sure we are truly universally accessible and open and available to everyone when the new building reopens. just thinking about the vital signs research, my experience as head of development, so I do all the fundraising for, or lead the fundraising for the capital expansion, it has been incredibly useful to me. There's been many opportunities when I've been sitting with a funder and they have said, you know, why MK Gallery, why Milton Keynes, why this project? And I have been able to sort of give a statistic off the top of my head from Vital Signs that talks about, you know, some of the deprivation within Milton Keynes, some of the need within Milton Keynes. And recently I had an example where I was asked exactly that question, and I was able to talk about GCSE success rates, and then I went on to talk about how that average rate changed when you just looked at pupils who were eligible for free school meals and how that dropped significantly. I did 30 seconds of talking about that statistic, and the funder just said, great, fine, that's exactly what I need to know about the city. And that for me is the real value of Vital Signs. It allows me to go out with the information so I can lever in additional funds to work alongside support from the Community Foundation and bring further investment into Milton Keynes.
And our last theme, if I'm not mistaken, for the day is education. Now, taken as a whole, our local schools appear to fall straight down the middle. I mean, if you're looking at exam results and national scores, while there is a lot of variety, as you would have within any city, between schools, some do score much better than others. Taken as a whole, Milton Keynes seems to hover right around national averages. We're either on the national average, bang on, or a few percent here or there. Excuse me. Correspondingly, when we asked local people what they thought of local schools, 75% said that they were performing well and provide good quality education. And this is borne out by the results of the offset inspections last year. There were 26 inspections, and 73% of those resulted in a good or outstanding rating for the school. None came back as inadequate. Since the report was written, there was one school offset inspection that has resulted in an inadequate rating locally, but as of last year, there still hadn't been. We see a range of exam results that hover right around the national averages here. We're looking at Key Stage 1, the young students outperforming national averages by 3%, when you're looking at Level 2B, reading, writing, and maths. This is a moderate improvement. If you look up at the Key Stage 4 students and their GCSE results, this is specifically looking at those who've taken 5 A star through C, or received 5 A star through C grades. So it is a moderate improvement, but we're still slightly behind the national average there. Casting the net a bit wider, so if we're looking at 5 with A star through G grades on GCSEs, including English and math, suddenly we're 6% higher than the national average. Nearly 7,500 students attending Milton Keynes College last year. And taken as a whole, every year we have 3,500 students leaving school in Milton Keynes, 55% going into higher education compared to 49% nationally. So we're 6% better than the national average. And that's a great indicator for our future and a great way to finish this presentation.
You've seen the data. It's really, really exciting. It's loads of very good news stories, very good things happening. But on the flip side, there is also a call to action for everybody in Milton Keynes. There's things that we need to do better to make the city even more amazing than it already is. So we would really invite everybody to be part of Vital Signs, to pick up the gauntlet, to engage in the process, start the conversations, and most importantly, react, respond, and get involved. We want to have people talking about the issues that are raised. We want people thinking about things we can do in response to it. We want people to support the foundation and fund some of the things that we can then do. But we really want people to join us in being part of this process. So it's a great stimulus, a great excitement, and a great thing to get involved in.